If you were born in the 1940s, the 1950s, or the 1960s, I need you to watch this complete video because there are three real and very different things happening with Social Security in 2026, depending on which of those 3 decades you were born in, and almost nobody is explaining them separately. Most channels lump all retirees into one generic warning. That is exactly why most of those videos leave you more confused than when you started. What applies to someone born in the 1940s is not what applies to someone born in the 1950s, and it is not what applies to someone born in the 1960s. Today I am going to walk through all 3 groups, one at a time, in plain language, using the actual rules the Social Security Administration has published, not rumours, not guesses. By the time this video ends, you will know exactly where you stand and what to check this week. Please send this to anyone in your family born in any of these 3 decades, because each of them has something specific to look at right now. My name is Karen Whitfield. I have spent the last 17 years working with retirees and pre-retirees as a certified retirement planning professional, sitting across the table from people trying to make sense of paperwork the government hands them with almost no explanation attached. I am not an attorney, and nothing in this video is legal or tax advice specific to your situation. Social Security rules are the same nationwide, but how they interact with your pension, your taxes, and your state can vary. So for anything that touches your specific numbers, a quick call to SSA directly or a session with a fee-only advisor is worth the hour. What I can do is lay out, clearly and honestly, what is actually true right now for each of these 3 groups. Let's start with why Social Security feels so different depending on when you were born. The system was redesigned in 1983, and one of the biggest changes was a slow increase in what is called full retirement age, the age at which you receive 100% of the benefit you earned. If you were born in 1943 through 1954, your full retirement age is 66. If you were born between 1955 and 1959, it climbs in 2-month increments, landing somewhere between 66 and 2 months and 66 and 10 months. And if you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67, flat, no matter how much later than 1960 you were born. That single number, 66 or 67, is the anchor for almost everything I am about to walk through, because every early filing reduction and every delayed filing increase is measured against it. Let's talk about the 1940s group first. If you were born in the 1940s, you are currently somewhere between 77 and 86 years old, and the overwhelming majority of you have been collecting Social Security for 15, 20, even close to 30 years at this point. For this group, the single most relevant thing happening in 2026 is not a new rule about claiming, since you already claimed decades ago. It's about something called the Social Security Fairness Act, which was signed into law in January 2025 and eliminated 2 provisions that had quietly reduced benefits for millions of people for over 40 years. The Windfall Elimination Provision, known as WEP, and the Government Pension Offset, known as GPO. Here's the plain language version of what those 2 provisions did. If at any point in your career you worked a job that did not withhold Social Security taxes, commonly teaching, police work, firefighting, or certain federal positions before 1984, the old rules assumed you were getting a separate pension from that job, so they cut your Social Security benefit, sometimes by a meaningful amount, and if you were collecting a spousal or survivor benefit based on someone else's record, GPO could reduce that by 2/3 of your pension amount, in some cases down to 0. Roughly 2 million people were affected by WEP, and another roughly 700,000 by GPO before the repeal. That law is gone now, permanently. As of December 2023, those reductions no longer apply, and the Social Security Administration has been issuing retroactive lump sum payments and higher monthly checks ever since, moving faster than almost anyone expected, with the agency reporting it had completed more than 3.1 million payments totaling roughly $17 billion as of last summer. So if you are in the 1940s group and you ever worked a state, local, or pre-1984 federal job alongside Social Security covered work, here is exactly what to check. Go to ssa.gov and log into your My Social Security account, or if you are not comfortable online, call the national number at 1-800-772-1213 and ask a representative directly. Has my record been adjusted for the Social Security Fairness Act? And if I am owed a retroactive payment, has it been issued to the bank account or address currently on file? The reason that second question matters so much is simple. If you have moved, changed banks, or had a family member helping manage your finances change your direct deposit information at any point in the last few years, your retroactive payment could be sitting unprocessed simply because the agency's records don't match where the money needs to go. There is also an important detail buried in how this law works. SSA generally cannot pay benefits more than 6 months retroactively from when you file or update a claim, except in certain survivor cases. So if you were eligible but never formally applied for a spousal or survivor benefit because GPO would have reduced it to nothing, time is part of the equation. Don't assume the agency will reach out and find you. The burden of confirming your own file is, unfortunately, on you. Let me give you a feel for the actual money involved through one composite example built from the kind of cases I have seen described again and again in this space. Picture a retired school teacher, let's call her Margaret, age 79, who taught for 31 years in a state pension system and had her modest Social Security spousal benefit reduced to nearly nothing by GPO for over a decade. After the repeal, her benefit was recalculated and she received a retroactive payment covering the underpaid months back to January 2024, plus a meaningfully higher monthly check going forward. The only reason it happened when it did is that she called and asked directly, rather than waiting for a letter that might have gone to an old address. That's the pattern worth remembering. The money was owed regardless, but the confirmation call is what moved it from calculated to in her account. Now let's move to the 1950s group. If you were born in the 1950s, you are currently somewhere between 66 and 76 years old, which puts almost this entire group either already collecting benefits or very close to having made that decision. Your full retirement age, depending on your exact birth year, lands somewhere between 66 and 66 and 10 months, so the first thing worth doing, if you have not already, is confirming your exact FRA on ssa.gov, since a few months of difference changes every calculation downstream. The Fairness Act repeal I just described applies to this group too, especially if you spent part of your career in a non-covered government job. But there's a second issue that hits the 1950s cohort specifically, and it's about people who are still actively deciding when to file, or who filed recently and are wondering if they got the timing right. Because your full retirement age is below 67, the math is slightly different from someone born in 1960 or later, but the core principle is identical. Claiming before your FRA locks in a permanent percentage reduction for the rest of your life, and waiting past it adds delayed retirement credits at 8% per year, compounding, all the way up to age 70. Here's a concrete way to see the size of the gap. Say your full retirement age benefit, your 100% number, would be $2,000 a month. For someone with an FRA of 66, claiming at 62 cuts that down by roughly 25% to about $1,500 a month. Waiting until 70 instead adds delayed credits for 4 full years, pushing that same benefit up to roughly $2,640 a month. That's an $1,140 per month gap every single month for as long as you live, just based on when you press the button. Over a 20-year stretch in retirement, that gap adds up to more than $270,000 in total income. I am not telling you everyone should wait until 70. If you need the income now, or your health or family history points the other way, claiming earlier can be the right call for your situation. What I am telling you is that this decision deserves 15 minutes with the actual numbers, not a guess. If you already filed within the last 12 months and you're having second thoughts, there is a real, narrow path available. SSA Form 521, the request for withdrawal of application. Filed within 12 months of your original claim, it lets you withdraw the application entirely, repay any benefits already received, and refile later at a higher rate as though you'd never claimed in the first place. It is not a 30-day window, and it is not automatic. It requires repaying what you've collected, but for the right situation, it is a genuine reset button, and almost nobody mentions it. Let me walk through one more composite example here. Picture a man named Walter, 68 years old, a retired machinist who claimed at 62 mainly because he was nervous about outliving his savings. 3 years later, after an unexpected pension payout improved his financial cushion, he learned about Form 521, calculated that he was still inside the 12-month window when he first considered it, and worked with SSA to understand the repayment math before deciding whether withdrawal made sense for his case. Whether or not someone in that position ultimately withdraws, the only thing that changes the outcome is knowing the option exists before the window closes. Now the 1960s group, and this is the section I'd ask you to stay through, because the decision in front of you is the most consequential of the three, and the one most often made with incomplete information. If you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67, flat, with no further phase-in, no exceptions for birth month. That single fact, locked in by the 1983 reforms, is the foundation for every number that follows. If you claim at 62, the earliest possible age, your benefit is permanently reduced by 30%, meaning you receive 70% of your full amount for the rest of your life. If you wait until 70, the latest age-delayed credits apply. Your benefit is permanently increased by 24% above your full retirement age amount. Between age 67 and 70, credits accrue at roughly 2/3 of 1% per month, 8% annualized. After age 70, waiting longer gains you nothing, since delayed credits stop accruing entirely at that point. Let's put real numbers on that. If your full retirement age benefit is $2,200 a month, claiming at 62 drops you to roughly $1,540 a month, permanently. Waiting until 70 raises you to roughly $2,728 a month, also permanently. That's an $1,188 monthly swing based entirely on timing. Run that gap across a 20-year retirement, and you are looking at a difference of more than $285,000 in total lifetime income, before even factoring in annual cost of living adjustments, which compound on top of whichever number you locked in. And yet, despite math like this being publicly available on SSA's own website, a majority of people in this age range still file before their full retirement age, frequently without ever having the side-by-side comparison laid out for them in plain dollars before they sign. If you are still working while collecting early, there's one more wrinkle worth knowing. In 2026, if you're under full retirement age for the entire year, SSA withholds $1 in benefits for every $2 you earn above $24,480 annually. In the calendar year you actually reach FRA, that threshold jumps to $65,160, and the withholding eases to $1 for every $3 over the limit. Once you hit FRA, the earnings test disappears completely, and importantly, withheld amounts are not gone forever. SSA recalculates your benefit afterward to credit you for those withheld months. A lot of people assume that money is simply lost. It isn't. It's deferred. One more composite story before we wrap this up. Picture a woman named June, 63 years old, a former office manager who was about to file at 63 simply because she'd heard claiming early was safer. After running her own numbers on SSA's calculator at ssa.gov and seeing that her FRA benefit of $2,000 a month would drop to roughly $1,750 permanently at 63, but climbed to nearly $2,480 if she held out until 70, she decided to keep working 2 more years and bridge the gap with savings. The only thing that changed her decision was seeing the actual numbers laid out side by side instead of going on instinct. Here's the action plan for all 3 groups, stated plainly. If you were born in the 1940s, log into ssa.gov or call 1-800-772-1213, confirm your address and direct deposit information are current, and ask specifically whether your record has been adjusted under the Social Security Fairness Act repeal of WEP and GPO. If you were born in the 1950s, confirm your exact full retirement age on SSA.gov. Request your Social Security statement to see your benefit estimate at 62, your FRA, and 70 side by side. And if you filed within the past year and have doubts, ask about Form 521 before that 12-month window closes. If you were born in the 1960s, your full retirement age is 67, period. So before you file anything, pull your real numbers at ssa.gov and look at all 3 ages, 62, 67, and 70, in actual dollars, not percentages. One important warning before I close. Every single thing I've described, checking your record, requesting a statement, confirming direct deposit, filing Form 521, costs you nothing. There is no fee to call SSA, no fee to log into your account, no fee to ask these questions. If anyone, by phone, by mail, or online, asks you to pay a fee to expedite, unlock, or process your Social Security benefits or your Fairness Act payment, that is not a real SSA process. Hang up and report it. If this helped make sense of where you stand, share it with the person in your life born in the decade that applies to them, a parent, an aunt, a neighbor who mentioned they're not sure when to file. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because between the ongoing Fairness Act rollout and the annual cost of living adjustment announcement coming this October, there's more changing in Social Security this year than in most years combined, and I'll keep breaking each piece down separately so it actually makes sense. Next time, I want to walk through how Medicare's IRMAA surcharge brackets work, and why a single high-income year can quietly raise your premiums 2 years later. I'll see you there.